Imagine a day where you did nothing and just stayed in a room. No schoolwork, no hobbies, no goals. Just scrolling, watching videos, and letting the hours disappear. One day feels wasted, a week feels a lot worrying. But what if that becomes your entire life?
Alone at the edge of a universe, humming a tune for merely.
Somewhere in the world right now, there are people who haven't gone to school in months, who haven't walked in months, and rarely leave their home, and barely leave their rooms, their own room, and they are known as HIKIKOMORI. The term HIKIKOMORI roughly translates to pulling inward or being confined. It describes people who withdrew from society for a long period of time, often remaining isolated for months or even years. Some stop attending schools, some quit their job, and some stop entirely face-to-face interaction. Like, sheesh. Hikikomori was largely popularized through the works of Tamaki Saito, a Japanese psychiatrist who studied the phenomena and brought it into public discussion during the late 1990s, mainly a book named Hikikomori, Adolescence Without End. What made Hikikomori so alarming wasn't the thing that people were staying at home, because we all do that sometimes, because we are human. We are not robots to work every day. So that wasn't the problem, but it's a part of it, but not the full image. So what's the thing? The thing is the duration. The duration is what made researchers worried about it, because it wasn't the thing over like one day or 1 week or 1 month. It was for years, like geez, like for years. The depressing part about this all shit is like these were people who were disappearing from society physically. These were people disappearing socially, and perhaps that's even harder to notice, because from the outside a person can look completely fine. They still have a home, food, internet access, maybe even some online friends. Yet day by day they become more disconnected from the world around them. I was intrigued at the time, like, how do these hikikomori people survive financially? And perhaps many still live with their parents, because most of them are still teenagers, with a like kind of depressing facts. But still, they still live with their parents. Fair enough for them. And some do freelancing online work, which are in risk due to AI and due to like. I'm not gonna talk about it for the next time, I guess. But for now, like, the actual reality is that many financial independence becomes increasingly difficult the longer isolation continues. The longer someone remains withdrawn, the harder it often becomes to return to education, employment, or social skills. And the genuine shittiest thing about all this situation is that when people hear about hikikomori online, they often encounter a very different image. A dark room, anime posters, late night gaming session, a glowing monitor, and the internet sometimes presents hikikomori as an aesthetic, a peaceful escape from society. No responsibilities, no pressure, no expectation, just you in your room. But this romanticized image lives out the actual reality, the loneliness, the anxiety, the missed opportunity, the birthdays, friends, and experiences that quietly passes by. And for many, it began with bullying, for some, family expectation, or some experiences that made the outside world so overwhelming, and some depression, fear of failure, and over time, isolation can feel safer than going outside. And after years of isolation, your room becomes your new comfort zone, and then it becomes a prison. Imagine waking up one day, date of mind to change. You tell yourself you will go to work, you will apply for a job, you will talk to people, take a walk, but after months or years of isolation, even opening the front door can feel overwhelming. Not because you don't want a better life, but because you have become afraid of the world you've been avoiding for years and years on end. For many years, Hikikomori was treated as a uniquely Japanese phenomenon. Like, genuine, like if it's so shit, people will get disgusted. But if you named it Japanese shit, then it will be glorified as kawaii shit. And to be fair, there are reasons why Japan are closely associated with it. The country has long been known for intense academic competition, demanding work culture, and strong social expectation. But here's where the story becomes more interesting and perhaps more concerning, because evidence of severe social withdrawal is no longer limited to Japan. The researcher has identified similar cases all around the world. The names may differ, the culture may differ, but the patterns remains unsurprisingly similar. And a person starts disappearing slowly. The outside world becomes intimidating and isolation starts feeding itself. So this raises a concerning question. What if hikikomori isn't just a Japanese problem and it's a modern problem? Think about how life has changed, like talking to people through screens without ever meeting them in person, which is great for introverts, but like it's like for a long term it's bad, like without face-to-face interaction, like the basic part of human disappears, the connection. From history we have been known for connecting and like socializing, but if that disappears, then what's the point? Like especially AI, which has taken all the job opportunity, like many youths are discouraged to even work. And the thing is, technology isn't the enemy, but it didn't make the long-term isolation easier to sustain. For most people, these conveniences are incredibly useful, but for a person who has been struggling socially for years and years, they now have many reasons to not leave home at all. Like, and the frightening part isn't that millions of people decided to isolate themselves, but the thing is how gradual this isolation process can be. And eventually, a person might find himself trapped in a life they never intended to create. This is why I hate the internet for creating this romanticized version of the hikikomori. Like, the internet often shows the comfort but never the consequences, the quiet room but never the laziness, the freedom from responsibilities but not the loss of purpose, the escape from pressure but not the years that can never be replaced. And yet, despite there's still hope, many former hikikomori eventually revealed their life. Like Hiroshima Yamazoe, like what a banger of a guy. Like they didn't fully reveal, but they still improved. Not because they suddenly become motivated overnight, not because they discover some magical productive dream, but because they slowly reconnect with families, with friends, with communities, with meaning. Like recovery often starts with something surprisingly small. A conversation, a short walk, or a support group, a person who refuses to give up on them, which brings us back to the big lesson. Hikikomori isn't just a story about Japan. It's a warning about isolation in the modern world. Just being connected to internet isn't the same as being connected to people in the real world. As our life becomes more increasingly digital, the risk of loneliness doesn't disappear. In some ways, it becomes more easier to hide. So, let me ask you something. Do you know how your friends are doing? Not the version they post online, not the version they show in group chats, but the real version. Because sometimes the people who need the most aren't asking for it. Sometimes they are simply becoming quieter, responding less, showing up less, disappearing a little more each day. And noticing can make a bigger difference than you think. Hikikomori isn't a mystery from a distant country. It's a modern human problem, one that reminds us how important connections really are. As it's June, the month of men's mental health awareness, where there are a lot of men in the world who have been working their asses out but still struggle mentally. And they cope with that just saying, I'm a man, I must control it. But shit, just because of a gender shouldn't define it. Because if you're female or male or any other gender, we all are human at the end of the day. We all deserve mental support. And maybe the most important takeaway isn't just learning a new Japanese word, maybe it's remembering to reach out, to check in, to send out the message you've been putting off. Because sometimes a closed door doesn't begin with years of isolation. Sometimes it begins with a single day. And sometimes all it takes to interrupt that process is to knowing that somebody cares. Stay strong. Thank you.